Dr. Q. So
Hi,
great to
Lori.
be here with you again.
I know, part 3.
I know. So you're running for Salinas Valley Hospital Board of Directors Zone 4.
Right.
And while a lot of the other candidates are out campaigning and trying to raise money, you're here with us, helping us learn how to be healthier. And so tonight we're actually changing topics. We're switching gears to financial freedom and how to achieve that. So why this topic, which seems so unrelated to your typical health topic?
Right. Well, I think whether we like or not, the society that we live in depends on finances. That's the driving force for the capitalistic society that we live in. So I think it's really important to have a good knowledge about it. Especially this year, up to date, we're down, what, 20% or so? So everybody look at their retirement and all of a sudden the number comes down significantly. So I think it's important to have a good knowledge and fundamentals in order to sustain ourselves. That also will give us, all of us, a better choices and ability to make decisions without having to be enslaved into the capitalistic society that we are in. So it's about how to work the system smart and be able to use that to serve our life and the community together.
Fantastic. So let's say I'm somebody who has a job, pays all my bills, has a good credit score. Why do we need to worry about financial freedom?
Yeah, and I think most of the banks is going to want you to be that person, because guess what, who you actually paying? You're actually paying the banks. Why do you think you go to the bank and you see the bankers are driving around with very fancy car and they get all these expensive things? Well, that's because you're actually paying for them. So I think that is the problem. So the credit score, for example, is a mean for you to literally borrow more money. They encourage you to borrow more money. That means that you're going to be spending money you don't have, and that's a big problem. I prefer that you have less of the bill, less of the line of credit in order to live within your means. So I think that's extremely important. And when you get a job, sure, it's nice, but when was the last time you look at your pay stub and see how much you make and how much you take home? And we all know that the amount that you take home is so little, so you can be bragging about making a certain amount of money. But you know, at the end of the day, how are you going to be able to do that? The problem is, as you can see, you know, gasoline right now, we're talking about $6.50 a gallon. Well, for a regular standard car, not even like a big SUV, a patient of mine recently spent $100 to fill up the car. Well, that's going to hurt the pocket, and I think it's really important to be smart about it and how to get the most values out of the hard-earned money. And I think that's really the important skill set that all of us need to understand and embrace, because at the end of the day, the only person that's going to worry about your money is yourself. Don't rely on anyone else.
Very good point. So you're telling me that we shouldn't work 2 to 3 jobs so that we can get ahead? Isn't that the American dream?
Sure, it is a American dream, but you're going to be, again, paying for someone else's mortgage. You're going to pay for someone else's fancy car. So it's about working smarter, not working harder. So it's good to work hard, it's good to have goals, but how do you work smarter? Because having 3 jobs and then you ended up spending all of that money on gasoline or paid credit card debt, and at the end of the day, you don't bring that much money in, or on top of that, you borrow money to buy all of these things. Well, how's that going to help you? It's not going to help you at all, especially the way the system is working. It will always incentivize you to spend more money. So by the time you work second or third job and you get all this extra money, and guess what? In your brain, you're thinking, oh my God, I deserve this, I deserve that, I deserve... Well, you don't deserve any of that. You need to live within your means. That's rule number 1. And so just because you make more money does not mean that you deserve all this extra stuff. It's all about the needs and the wants, and all the wants, stuff that it'd be nice to have, is something extra, and you shouldn't be spending money on those wants until you have a lot of extra income or extra revenue to help to offset that.
You know, that's a really good point, because it seems no matter how much we earn, we tend to have our expenses match our income. So that tends to not lead to us establishing that financial freedom that you're talking about.
And by the way, that is, in my opinion, is by design. It's not actually a coincidence at all. Why do you think that everything in our society is predicated on ads, right? You know, basically marketing, you know, how many clicks you do or how many commercials you see. Well, the whole point is that it plant the seed in your mind that you need to spend more, spend the money you don't have. Well, no wonder everybody's borrow more money, and how's that going to help you? So the important thing is how to actually save more. So if you remember nothing from this talk, it's important to look at how much money you have at the end of the day, how much money you save at the end of the month or the week or the years.
So ads would have us believe that happiness comes from spending, and you're saying happiness actually comes from saving. I like that.
Yeah, and happiness really comes from within. You want to have that happiness in your heart. And a lot of the stuff that we do that bring happiness is actually doesn't have to cost anything, like walking at the beach, going for the hike, be with your friends and family, people you enjoy spending time with. None of that's going to cost a lot of money or any money at all. So don't have to spend in order to have happiness. In fact, spending money kind of go back to the other talk that we talk about. When you have these kind of scenario, spending money is sort of like having that little ding sound when you get the messages. It actually helps to release this dopamine in your brain, and so it's kind of precondition you to actually do more of that. It's really an addiction, and so they're kind of training you over the years. So the more you click, the more you shop, the more you feel better, except it's temporary. And the next thing you know, you're more and more in debt, and that becomes a problem.
Absolutely. You know, and you've talked before about financial literacy. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so we all, you know, go to school, grade school, high school, colleges, and all of that. The problem is that a lot of the financial languages and how money machinery are working for you or for a certain organization or company has not been taught in school that much at all. And so then a lot of us are financially illiterate. So we have no idea. So you might be making $1 million a year, but if you don't learn that really well, then you spend all of that, and then you got nothing. You still live from paycheck to paycheck, no difference than someone who actually, you know, work at McDonald's and that kind of thing. So I think the important thing is to make sure you have that financial literacy. So you need to learn that. Now there's so many different resources out there in different books, different kind of programs. The important thing is just start with one. I don't care what program you start, just start with one, and then get to know your finances well. The second thing is that they always try to go out there and tell you that, well, you know, somehow finances are kind of dirty, you know, money is a dirty kind of words that you somehow have to delegate to someone else's to take care of your money. Well, guess what? They only do their job. They're not going to worry about your money as you worry about your money. So I would like you to worry about your money at the end of the day, because you should be in the driver's seat and make sure that no money is wasted. And that you're going to be able to keep the amount of money that you can, and then you really get the best values for any services or items that you purchase.
Okay, so yeah, that was actually going to be a question. A lot of us have friends who have financial advisors who take care of everything for them, and it sounds like you're saying that's not the best strategy to take.
Right, and so just like with dealing with doctors, dealing with lawyers, dealing with financial advisor, you need to be in the driver's seat. You need to tell them what is it that you wanted to do. They're supposed to be working for you. You are their customers. So the important thing is set up, delay, you know, basically delegate the decisions to them. You need to tell them what you would like to do. For example, say, okay, I was younger, I am a lot more willing to take some risk to invest in the market because I have a lot more years to go. Okay, that's wonderful. But then 20 years later, you turn 60s and late 50s and early 60s. So, well, right now, I already made some amount of money. I want to have more capital preservation. I don't want to lose my money. Well, then you need to change that. So you need to decide that for yourself, and you need to be firm about that, because some of the financial advisors, for example, have different kind of fee structure. Some of them are simple fee. They just get a flat rate, which is nice because they're not going to be partial about different kind of products that they sell. Unfortunately, a lot are actually making money on commission, just like people selling stock or selling cars or selling other items. So then they want you to buy and sell things constantly in order to generate the commission. Well, how's that going to help you? Well, sure, they're going to get paid more at the end of the month or the year, but it's not going to help you just because you buy or sell certain things. So you need to decide for yourself what is it that you want it to do, and you need to hold them accountable and responsible for your wishes because they work for you.
So it sounds like being an active participant is the key. Don't ever just give somebody else the keys. You be in charge and have them assist you, and it's still really your plan.
Absolutely, and I think that's really important. And whenever you hear something that is too good to be true, it probably is. So don't listen to anybody who promise you the sky, you get 20% return to investment, and you're going to do really well. And you're going to be get rich quick kind of scheme, because it is a get rich quick kind of scheme. So don't go for that.
The operative word being scheme.
That is correct.
So I looked up financial freedom, and just for the audience so they'll know what that means. So everyone defines financial freedom in terms of their own goals. For most people, it means having a financial cushion. So things like savings, investment, and cash, and to be able to afford a certain lifestyle. And that's in addition to having a nest egg for retirement or the freedom to pursue any career without need to earn a certain salary. So can you give us a simpler version of that so we can better understand?
Well, I don't know about you, Laura, but when I hear all of those kind of things, my head spins like, what is it? And then by the time I get to the end of that conversation, I can't remember the beginning of the definition. So at the end, you know, the simplest version in my mind is that financial freedom is getting to the point in your life that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, and that's it. So therefore, you are fully in control, and then you can live your life however you like it, and as simply or as complicated as you like, but it's not enslaved into the dollars amount or how much money you need to make.
So you're not being driven by money, it is supporting you.
That's right.
In the life that you want to lead. Okay. So you mentioned before that taking care of finances is like taking care of your health and well-being. So what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so you know, as a surgeon in the operating room, for example, you know, the number one thing we always worry about is what is the estimated blood loss? So how much bleeding are we having? And because if we start to lose a lot of blood, we need to kind of call the blood bank and get blood transfusion. Well, guess what? Your finances the same way. So if you're bleeding like crazy and you actually lose so much money, well, you need to do something about that. You need to somehow, well, number one, stop the loss of money, and then number two is replace some of the lost money. So I think that's where the parallel kind of scenario happened. I think it's really important to remember that and pay attention to that, because if you were having an injury and you're bleeding like crazy, would you be walking around just let it keep bleeding? The answer is absolutely not. And yet we do this all the time. You do certain things in life, you lose money all the time, and you just keep going. And one of the biggest thing that you see is all these subscription services for a lot of, you know, especially online services. You subscribe to so many things, you can't remember what you're subscribing on. And then number two is that they say, oh, well, let's do it, save some paper and have your statement sent via online. Then you never click on the link, so you never know, so you have no idea. But the worst part is, of course, now they're going to have all these new apps coming out to help you to track all of these things. So then you have to pay another subscription service to track the subscription service you already have. So it's all about simplifying your life, and then just keep track of them closely, so you're not going to be having money withdrawn from your account automatically by some institution. And when you actually review that closely, you'll be able to make sure that you're not going to be bleeding left and right without any intervention.
I love that analogy, because if I was bleeding, I'd want to find the source of it and stop it really quickly. So I think that's brilliant, because it gives people a visual of imagining their money running out of their bank account in the same way. So thanks for that.
You know, it's funny because now with the price of gas is so expensive, the parallel kind of analogy is that just imagine you drive down the street and your tank of gas is leaking gasoline all the time. I'm sure you stop the car right there and then find out what's going on. I just spent $150 on gas and I'm not gonna go another 150 on the next gas station. I'm gonna stop and find out. And yet we do this with our money all the time, which is really sad because people work really hard to make a certain amount of money and yet we keep losing them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And so, what is the number one financial item that we all need to focus on?
I think it's all about cash flow. So again, similar to the analogy with the surgery and the blood loss and that kind of thing, you want to be sure that you're not going to be losing. Because if you're losing every single day, every single month, every single year, it's going to add up. Now, you might just be losing $5, $10, $100, but that's going to add up. So that's why it's extremely important that you always monitor your finances. So then that way you always make sure you're not going to be losing money. So it's all about how much money you make and how much money you spend. So for example, you're talking about some executive that make $1 million and then he turned around and spent $1 million in one. Well, guess what? His is negative by $100,000. So he literally is going to be living from paycheck to paycheck. On the other hand, if I had this other patient that were actually making $50,000 and she spent only $30,000 a year, guess what? She's making $20,000 extra a year, and that's nice. Now remember, she's not really making 20 because a lot of that has already gone to taxes. So then she really only probably keep maybe 10, but still, that's still a substantial amount. So the point is that you want to be sure you're constantly watching your cash flow to see what's coming in and what's leaving, and how much is there at the end of the day. And when you do that, you'll be much more in control. And when your numbers don't look right, you need to make corrective action. The point in life is you need to be proactive about it. You don't want to wait until after 3, 4, 5 quarters of the losing streak, because then it's going to be so much harder to catch up.
Yeah. So on a related topic, as we all know, the market's down quite a bit right now. So if we're worried about our retirement because all of our money's tied up in the market, what should we do? What are the life lessons we can learn?
I think the important thing is resist the temptation to act, kind of without any logic. Of course, the big things right now is that because it's down right now, before you do anything, you want to just kind of step back and reevaluate. That's step number one. Number two is, okay, what do we do right now? Well, if you're in the market for long term, then I think it's reasonable. It's kind of weigh it out. You have to wait longer. The question is, when is it going to go back? It will go back. The question is how long it's going to be. So if you have enough time in your life and you don't need to touch those money, I think it's reasonable to weigh it out. But the life lesson to learn is you want to be proactive about it. You want to think about it ahead of time. So for example, if you're actually looking at this, early on and you're already worried about it, then it is best to have diversification. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So if you're 100% invested into equity, the stock market, now goes down 20-30%, well, you're going to be hurting, right? But if you only have 20% of your total net worth in stock market, it goes down 20%, you can handle that because you have other items on your portfolio. So if you not already have a balanced portfolio, then it's extremely important for you to make sure you have that balanced portfolio, and at some point in the future you might want to rebalance the portfolio, so that way then if one items go down, you can sustain or withstand the changes of the market fluctuation. I think it's very important to kind of understand that, and the things you don't want to do is act on fear, because right now there's going to be so much kind of services or item that is so based on your fears. Oh my gosh, you're so fearful that's going to go down another 20-30%. So therefore you got to act on it. Well, now is the wrong time to kind of act on the fear. So it's good to reevaluate and take your time to kind of see where things are and where your life goals are.
Yeah, so it sounds like patience is indeed a virtue
Absolutely.
in something like the stock market. So what would you say is the most valuable life? What is most valuable in life? Is it money?
Well, not really. Money, I think, just like you mentioned earlier, is money should be serving you. So that way that will give you ability to get things done, to enjoy vacation, the time with your family, and all of that. But I think the most important values in life is time. All of us get only 24 hours in the day, whether you are the most, richest executive in the world versus any one of us. So I think the important thing is make sure that you spend your time wisely. Your time is the only thing that you cannot take back. So make sure you live your life to the fullest extent. Don't forget to enjoy every single moment of it. So then that way that if you look back 5, 10, 20 years from now, say, wow, I'm glad I did that, whatever that is. And so having money is good. At the same time, having it to serve your life. And if you don't have a lot of money, that's fine. Then be doing something that is inexpensive or costs nothing.
Yeah. So it sounds like just like your health, it's all about having perspective and doing what's important to you and what supports you.
That's right.
Okay. So I've heard you mention in the past, in our past 2 interviews, the 3 pillars of health. Do we have an equivalent to that would be pillars of financial freedom?
Yeah, I think I just kind of thought about this, but certainly it's all about the basic principle. And the basic principle about finances it's all about revenue. It's all about profit and then loss, and then the last part is how much debt that you have. Unfortunately, in this country, we encourage people to get into debt all the time. You get into debt to start a business. You get into debt in order to invest. The problem is whenever you get into debt, then you're actually paying someone else's, and that's usually the bank. So why do you think the bank exactly makes so much money? And when the market crashed in 2008, they still make a lot of money, and they still walk away with a lot of money. Well, that's because the business they're in. So I think the important thing is how to understand that and try to not having so much of that. For example, in this, things are expensive around here in Monterey County, and we actually, just imagine you buy a property for $500,000, which is hard to find with that kind of price. But even if you get that kind of price, and then you pay, 7-8% interest over 30 years, well, guess what? By the end of that 30 years, you actually pay more than double the price that you originally paid for the property. So then all of a sudden, who makes all that money? The financial institution. Nothing wrong with that. They're in their business to make money. But I think the important thing is, well, make sure you don't spend too much or most of your hard-earned income to pay someone else's. So the less that you borrow, the less interest and fees that you have to pay, and then obviously you can save more, and then you have much better financial standing. So by the time you have a solid income and you have minimal expenses and you manage your debt well, your 3 pillars of finances is going to be very strong and stable, and then you can start to grow that bigger and stronger for many years to come.
Okay, great. And shifting gears just a little bit, so let's talk about nonprofit and for-profit companies. What are the differences?
Yeah, I think that somehow there's a misunderstanding or not a full understanding about that. For-profit is basically someone actually have a company. They actually provide services or products, and then the profit is stay with them. They pay all the taxes just like a regular person do, and that would be the scenario. Non-profit, on the other hand, is an organization supposed to be created for the good of the society, and therefore they do not have to pay taxes. The profit at the end of the year is not considered profit, is going to consider extra surplus. And that surplus now is not taxable and can be used for the goods and services. So for example, SVMH is a nonprofit, so therefore whatever the extra money the SVMH make at the end of the year is not taxable, so it keeps 100%. Whereas if you and I have a company and we run it as a for-profit, we have to pay taxes on the profit end of the year. Again, nothing wrong with that. But that relates to the mission of the nonprofit. The mission of the nonprofit is to do good for society and for the community. So therefore, the goal is not to make a lot of money in order to maximize the surplus. The goal is to provide the most amount of services for the community with the revenue that comes in. And I think sometimes there's a little mismatch because it could be just complacency, it could be not a full understanding of the whole reason behind nonprofit. So therefore the goal for a nonprofit organization is to be financially sound, but at the same time to make sure that whatever the extra revenue we have is going to translate to valuable services. And talking about this day and age, and we talked about that in the previous talk, the number one problem we're facing right now in Monterey County is access to care timely. Yeah. You know, you have to wait 3-4 months sometime to see a specialist. Well, by then you already got sick and you have to go to the hospital and do all of these expensive procedures and studies. Well, better yet, with the extra surplus, we should put a lot more resources on how to reduce the wait time, so that patients will be seen timely and address the problem proactively. That will save a lot of lives, that will save a lot of health expenses, and people can live happily with less of the issues and problems related to health and not having to worry about that all the time.
So it sounds like it's really important to think of it almost like a private business and that you want to maximize profits because who you're maximizing profits for is actually the people you're helping.
Right.
And the more wisely you manage the money, the more money you have to support the services that save you money in the long run, it sounds like.
Right. And you know, I think that's really important thing is that sometimes it doesn't seem to make sense, but for a nonprofit organization, that makes perfect sense because then you actually provide more services for the community. That's the one and only goal for such a nonprofit. So that's why I think it's important for us to remind ourselves and remind each other that we continue to focus on the very important mission in the organization itself.
Okay, great. And so you actually have a background in business management. So how do you use your management and finance expertise to help you in a position like being on the board of trustees?
Yeah, I think it's just about number one, be knowledgeable about the finances. So then that way, then if someone come and you can give a sales speech about whatever that should be done, then you're not going to be approving that without full understanding. And also understanding the profit, the nonprofit, I think is important because just because the greatest and latest procedure that bring a lot of revenue for a hospital might not be the right thing for the organization because we're trying to serve the community and we try to improve the timeliness and the quality of services, for example, to keep people healthy. So that's part one. Part two is that the big important thing is that then you need to sort of weigh in the risks and the benefits involved. And given the fact this is a medical facility providing care both outpatient and inpatient, it's really important to have that medical expertise to know what's right and what's wrong and what's important and what's not, and weigh that against the financial implication. So by having the background to know both the medical side and the financial side, you're going to be able to make a more balanced decision so that you can get the most values out of the decision that you made. And from then you can work with other board members in order to enlighten them about the importance of that balance as well.
Yeah, so that sounds great. I think that's a unique combination because having the medical background helps you best understand how to utilize resources best to be able to provide the most care, and having the finance background helps you better understand the same, how to best utilize the finances for the most good.
Right.
Okay.
And really not having to chasing after more and more and more revenue all the time, because at the end of all of that, our mission is to provide the health and the quality health care and keep people out of the hospital, less sick and less suffering. So therefore, it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I like something else you brought up before, that when we take care of things early, they actually cost less later. So that initial investment is, would you say, is a good idea to help us save finances over the long term?
Right, and absolutely very, very important to understand that. And I think it's not just for the community, like people in the hospital and the nurses and the patient, but I think it also has a much wider implication to the whole economy in Monterey County. We're talking about our economy, $2 billion a year kind of economy. Well, how many of those people are working in service industry and work in the farm and agriculture industry? Well, just imagine, your worker is constantly going to doctor's visit and constantly be excused, constantly on work comp, leave or anything like that. Well, the efficiency is minuscule. So this improved the efficiency significantly. And so as a result of that, I think, a business owner, agricultural owners and company would do well because they're going to have a much healthier workforce. One of the other idea I have is going to be really cool to be able to implement is that just imagine the hospital is going to partner with the local businesses in order to help to educate and to improve the employees' health without cost. I mean, wouldn't that be a great idea? I mean, if we generate so much surplus that we have a lot of these things, well, just send our team right into the company and provide the services so then that way they'll be educated, reduce the injury, improve their health, even has nothing to do with the injury. And then all of that is going to translate to healthier workforce, healthier family, healthier lives, and everybody is going to benefit. Unfortunately, it's just not focused too frequently, and I think it's important to kind of shine the light onto those very important endeavors so then we can all live happily together in this community.
And it's interesting because that seems to circle back to what you were talking about. If you're bleeding, you want to find the source of that, and it sounds like if we take care of people early on, it doesn't translate into having this big blood flow that you now have to work with. So it seems like it really ties everything together.
And I think it's really important to kind of understand that as well, is that instead of just fighting with the employees all the time and the workforce and people being off all the time, it'd be so much nicer and easier. Just take good care of them so then they'll be around. And given the fact that we have a pandemic and you drive around, you see all these hiring sign. It's difficult to retain skilled employees. Well, guess what? Why don't you just hang on to the one that you have, take good care of them, they stay healthy, and they'll be more eager to work for you. That would be so nice. And they're going to produce more goods and services for the community. And that would be the wonderful world that we should live in and at least to strive for.
And it's nice because it ties back so beautifully to the prior 2 weeks. We talked about stress, for example, and anxiety. And if we take good care of our employees, less stress and anxiety translates to, like you're saying, more ability to do good work. So would you say that's one of the best strategies to really...
And I think the whole point of life is that everything that we do are interconnected. And I think it's really important to kind of pay attention to that. And you want to be sure you're constantly being proactive about how to take care of business, take care of one and another, so that way you're going to be as healthy and happier alive as possible. So then that way then you can all enjoy the moments that we have on this earth together.
So it sounds like physical health and financial health are actually very well tied together.
Yeah, physical health, mental health, financial health, all tied together. It's all about staying healthy and be able to really take care of one another and being proactive of how to remind one another to stick with good for the society together.
Yeah, I think that's an important lesson you're teaching us, that taking care of our financial health helps our physical health and vice versa. And we want to make sure we allow some time for anybody in the audience to ask some questions. So it sounds like we have some.
Yeah, somebody missed the beginning, so could you just quickly give a brief overview on the concept of our accounts bleeding?
Oh, the bleeding account. Oh, sure. So the whole question is, well, how is that finance is related to surgery? that I do. And I said the analogy is that if you have a patient on the surgical table and that person is bleeding, what do? Well, you stop everything, find out where's that bleeding from, and stop the bleeding. I mean, it's just natural things to do. So therefore, it's really important, just like finances, if you're actually having a lot of money that got withdrawn from your account, all the expenses, then you don't do anything, it's like the same thing as bleeding. So it is one's good job to keep a close eye on how much expenses we have and how to minimize the amount of expenses. So therefore, if you know exactly what you need and what you want, then you pay for the goods and services that you need, but then you're going to actually think twice about if you want certain things or not. And if you don't, you don't have the extra income to pay for the stuff that you want, then maybe you shouldn't, or delay that until a later time. It's always good to have delayed gratification, so that if you wait a little bit longer, it makes it that much better. And I think it becomes much more enjoyable because then that is sort of like the way that you show that you overcome and you succeed difficult tasks and then be able to achieve the end goal.
What is better to put your money in, a Roth IRA or a TSA?
I highly recommend to put as much money into the Roth IRA as possible because the Roth IRA is the kind of account where anything that you grow is going to be tax-free. So therefore, you put the money in, and then the compound interest and investment, you can actually grow exponentially over time, especially you start in your teens and your 20s, even small amount. So then by the time you're actually into your retirement age, then you can withdraw that without paying a single dime in taxes. The only exception to that is that if Congress decide to change that because they need more money, since we're actually $31 billion in debt, then all of that is going to go out. But as it stands right now, I think that would be the way to go. The only problem with that is that there's an upper limit of how much you can put money into Roth IRA. So if you can put money in Roth IRA with your existing income, then by all means max it out. If you cannot do that, there's another way. It's called conversion. So this year is actually particularly really good for you to do because the stock is down, right? So just imagine you actually make, put some regular IRA and then you make some money in the stock market over the last 10 years. Well, right now we're actually down close to 20%. So the stock goes down. Well, you can convert that IRA into Roth IRA, then your tax liability is a lot less because guess what? It just went down 20%, isn't it? So therefore, you actually pay less taxes on that money conversion. So it might not be a bad thing. So there's some silver lining when the stock is down. You still have to pay some extra expenses, but it's not a bad move to make at this point.
Thanks for that really helpful advice.
And to give people a better idea of the healthcare system in the county, someone also asked, is Natividad also nonprofit?
Yeah, Natividad absolutely is nonprofit. Natividad is a county hospital, so it actually belongs to the county. In fact, all decision made by Natividad is made by the board of supervisor. So believe it or not, you have the board of directors in Natividad, but board of directors in Natividad is unlike SBMH, don't make the ultimate decision. The decision is actually made by the board of supervisor because the county owned the Natividad Medical Center. So it's just slightly different logistic. So that's why I think the position of the board director at SBMH is so much more important in terms of operation management because there's no other oversight. The county has an extra layer oversight, so it's important and they make significant contribution. It's just slightly different kind of system and have different much more safeguards in place.
When you become a board member, will you make it so that employees can have money to put in the Roth IRA automatically?
Absolutely. I think saving is number one. I talk at the beginning of the talk is that you remember only one thing, just saving, saving. How much money you have extra at the end of the month or the year in your pocket. That's the only thing that matters. I don't care how much you make. If you got nothing at the end of the month in your pocket, well, then guess what? You make nothing. And if you get negative $100, you're in big trouble. And if you negative or more, you're in bigger trouble. So the point is that you want to save as much as possible. So therefore, I highly recommend people to kind of have these kind of automatic saving, just because then you don't have to think about it. And then by the time you receive your check at the end of the month, you don't think about it at all. And small amounts going to add up. You can just be taking out, $100 a paycheck or even more if you can. I think it's going to be significantly helpful in order to grow that. Now, the important thing is now, once you actually grow that NASDAQ, your job is make sure you keep a close eye on that. Don't just rely on somebody and just let it be whatever managed. You need to say, okay, how's it doing? Do I need to change it? There are certain plans that you can actually take your plan to put into some other account so that you can be self-managed as well. So there's options out there in different companies. So it's important to rely on that. In fact, back in 2007, 2008, we have some of these companies that the owner of the company used some of the employees' pension fund to do whatever the investment, which turned out to be a big old disaster. And then a number of these employees actually lost a large amount of money. So it's always important to look out for your money. Again, you need to look out for your money. There's no other ways around, because that is your livelihood, that is your hard-earned money, and that is your time. Your time is valuable, and you just spend that on making those money. So make sure you use that money wisely and watch it closely.
I understand that you have many staff that have been with you for years and your patients too. What is your secret?
The secret is being proactive and take good care of your family members. I look at all of my staff like my own family. And so sometimes you see certain event, I go to birthday, quinceañera, I become a part of that. And I think it's important. And sometimes people kind of don't understand why is it that I'm actually, hanging out and do these things with my staff. I don't look at them as my staff. I don't look at them as my employee. I look at them as a part of my extended family. And throughout the time and the different business cycles, sometimes it's difficult that we have to downsize and we have to lay off. I made it clear to my staff, and we have many of them who actually go downsize and then contact me back at some point down the line, asking for the job back. And if there's time and there's ability, there's opening, we do that. I think that's the coolest thing, is that throughout this pandemic, and you always hear about how difficult labor force is. I haven't had problem finding or adding staff, because we constantly have people that is available and willing to work. And I think that's the coolest feeling. And it's reciprocate. It's a two-way street. You take care of one another, then it's going to reciprocate. That's really the only thing that that matters, because they are a part of you as much as you are a part of them.
Yeah, I think
Okay. And how has that benefited your staff and clients financially?
How is it benefit? Is that, if we have a lot, then we share together, and we don't have a lot, then we kind of tighten out together. And that goes back to one of the proposals I mentioned, I guess, with the weekly, Coastal Weekly magazine. One of the questions they asked is, well, how is everyone going to be able to kind of deal with, with labor contract negotiation? I said, well, if we have good time and administration are getting a big raises, well, guess what? The line staff, the nurses should get the raises too. And if we're on a difficult time, when we don't have a lot of surplus or even negative at time, then everybody have to tighten their belt. The important thing is that I think we all need to lead by example. So we can't just be giving one side a lot of raise and not the other side. So it's just about fairness and about equity. And once we have that fairness and equity and we have the sense of transparency, then we'll be able to have a very workable solution and work together as a team instead of being us and them kind of scenario. And so many organizations, that is the kind of scenario. It's just really sad to be in that kind of settings.
Okay, this is the last question. Should I put the money that I now have in a TSA into a Roth IRA instead?
Yeah, I would recommend that. I think Roth IRA, if you can do that with all of these, some of these requirements, you just look it up about, the income requirements and that kind of thing. Once you put into Roth IRA, I think you're going to do so much better. And again, this year is not a bad time to kind of invest put more money into Roth IRA because everything is down. So therefore, you start at the lower basis. So when just imagine a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, the stock market go up the 20-30% that it lost, then all of a sudden, all of that appreciation now is tax-free. So it's going to be amazingly advantageous. Of course, as you know, you can't touch that money until you retire. So you have to be ready for that. But that goes for all of the retirement accounts.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you for that. And I love what you said about the employees because it sounds like you value your employees so much. And when employees are valued, they are healthier, they are more productive, and it is just such a better experience for your patients, I would imagine, as well.
Right, absolutely. I think that's really the important thing is that if we want to take care of one another, if we're in the business of taking care of the patient, well, guess what? We need to lead by example as well. We should take care of one another all the time and wholeheartedly. So we can't just pretend that we take care of people. We need to take care of our employees for real, really well, because that's going to translate to taking good care of the patient as if they are part of the family.
Yeah, and what really shines through is how much you care, not only about your employees, but your patients as well. And I'm sure they all appreciate you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So if we don't have any more questions, I just want to thank you so much, Dr. Q, for spending your quality time with us, helping us understand not only how to improve our health, but just how much our financial freedom is an integral part of that. Because I learned so much today, and I'm sure we all did learn about how those really work so much hand in hand for the success not only of us as individuals, but for the healthcare system as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. And we're so thankful that you're also running for that SBMH Board of Directors and really looking forward to how you'll help guide the direction of healthcare delivery systems, because it sounds like you have so much to offer that would really benefit all of us so you'll serve the people of the community and we can all live healthy and happy lives with financial stability, so that extra piece that we're all looking for. So thank you so much for that valuable information.
Well, with that, I thank you, and I thank you all of folks that actually joined on to this event tonight, because time is very valuable, and they actually spent their most important commodity, which is time, with us tonight. And again, thank you, and good night.
It was time very well spent.
Thank you.
Thanks.